answer from Andrew. Just stood there holding him until Andrew's brain caught up and he nodded. Yes. Caleb smiled and kissed him. The world moved, but then again, he was being carried across the suite to the large bedroom where he'd slept the night before. Caleb lowered him onto the bed and followed, covering Andrew's body with his own. I've never wanted anyone so much. Andrew blinked up at him and smiled. Caleb didn't seem to be in a hurry now. You know, the first day we met, and you were lying there sick and hurt, I wanted you. I thought I was such a pervert. Caleb groaned. I don't think so. God, you walked in and I thought that was it. I'd die from having you right there and being unable to do anything about it. He traced his hand down Andrew's arm. You can do something about it now, you know. I have some stuff in my bag. Caleb dropped his head to Andrew's chest. Oh, thank God. I didn't think of it before, and then, well, I just wasn't thinking. He climbed off the bed and grabbed Andrew's duffel bag from the top of the dresser. He carried it over and placed it on the bed. Andrew dug around for lube and condoms, and when he looked up again, Caleb was standing beside the bed, naked. He knelt with one knee on the mattress and grabbed the waist of Andrew's track pants. He slid them down slowly until he had to stand back up and pull them the rest of the way off. Caleb's eyes darkened, an expression of lust and longing on his face. Andrew couldn't remember anyone ever looking at him so intently before, like they were trying to stare into his soul. The longing got Andrew more than anything. The deep level of want that had Caleb panting for breath as he stared down at Andrew. Andrew's breath quickened as well. He wanted, needed, to keep that connection between them. He reached up and grabbed Caleb's neck, pulled him down, and bit his lips until Caleb opened his mouth. Andrew devoured him, poured every ounce of his lust into the kiss. He wanted to turn Caleb into a slavering beast, unable to think of anything or anyone but Andrew. He buried his hands in the dark curls on Caleb's neck and held his head still for Andrew's exploration. Caleb moaned as Andrew licked down his jaw and over his neck. He bit down, not hard enough to break the skin, but it was enough to drive Caleb wild. He reared up and jerked Andrew's hands out of his hair. He pinned Andrew to the bed by his wrists and stared down at him, gasping for breath. Caleb's eyes changed again, this time a hint of gold emerging as he growled low in his chest. Andrew bucked up beneath Caleb, the loss of control exactly what he needed. Caleb reached over and grabbed the condom, ripped it open with his teeth, and rolled it on. Andrew fumbled for the lube and coated his fingers before pulling his legs up and coating his hole. Caleb froze. Watching Andrew's fingers work, he brushed Andrew's hand aside and dipped his own fingers in the slick. Andrew bit his lip and arched into the touch. Please, Caleb. One finger slipped inside. Caleb watched Andrew's reaction. Andrew wanted him to know how much he needed him. More. Now. Caleb growled and jerked his hand free. He leaned over Andrew and hooked Andrew's legs over his shoulders. Their eyes met, locked, as Caleb guided his cock to Andrew's hole and pushed through the first barrier. Andrew hissed and forced himself to relax at the stretching burn. He squeezed Caleb's arms with his hands, and Caleb stopped and waited for Andrew to open to him. The ache eased over a moment, and Andrew's muscles unclenched. Caleb slid the rest of the way inside with a long groan. Damn, Caleb muttered before leaning down to kiss Andrew again. Their tongues tangled as Caleb began a slow, shallow thrusting. Andrew moved his hips as well, meeting each push. He held onto Caleb's strong arms, the muscles flexing with each movement. Caleb growled low in his chest again and lowered himself onto Andrew's body. He let Andrew's legs slide from his shoulders, and Andrew wrapped them tightly around Caleb's waist. Caleb grasped Andrew's shoulders as he continued to fuck into him. With the closeness of their bodies, everything intensified. Andrew could feel every bit of skin that Caleb touched, felt his cock thrusting inside, his heart pounding in his chest, and he gasped for frantic breaths as he went higher and higher. Caleb read his reactions, gave him a wicked grin, and began a more staccato pace. He snapped his hips, paused, and snapped again, harder. Caleb! It was the only word in Andrew's mind. He couldn't express what he needed, couldn't even think. Caleb rolled them to the side, managed to flip Andrew on top of him without slipping from his body. Andrew raised and lowered himself, even as Caleb continued to snap his hips up and meet him thrust for thrust. Andrew reached for Caleb's chest, held on to the flexing muscles beneath him. He locked his gaze onto Caleb's even as he felt his balls draw up. "I'm coming. Oh, God. I'm coming." Caleb reached for Andrew's cock, gripped it tightly, and gave it a couple of quick pulls. It was all the additional sensation Andrew needed, and he came across Caleb's stomach. He kept moving, wanted Caleb to be there with him. Caleb reared up and guided Andrew's hips to his, slammed him down forcefully, once, twice, before he bit down on Andrew's shoulder and moaned his release. Both their bodies twitched for long moments, the aftershock shuddering through them with each movement. Andrew laid his head on Caleb's shoulder. "Fuck me," Caleb laughed. "I just did." "Oh, hell yeah, you did. You so did. Well, I think I need to sleep now." Caleb rubbed his back, the sweat from their exertions slippery between them. "You need to eat and drink something besides coffee." Andrew huffed. "Not going to happen. I need a nap. You drained me dry." Caleb helped him ease up, and his softened cock slipped from Andrew's hole. Even that much movement sent another shudder through Andrew. The loss, the emptiness, made him crave more, but his body's limitations didn't escape him. He'd be sore enough tomorrow as it was. Andrew fell to the side and landed on one of the pillows. He sighed and wiggled around to get comfortable. Caleb got up and went to the bathroom, returning moments later with the condom disposed of and a warm cloth that he used to wipe down his own chest. "Want me to clean you up a bit?" "Not really. I just want to lay here and bask for a minute. Maybe an hour, possibly 2. Caleb wiped him off anyway. "I'm going to order room service. I'm starving. Want a burger?" "I want a nap." Caleb kissed Andrew's cheeks and nuzzled against his ear. "Nap then. I'll be right back." It was the last thing Andrew heard, but he was aware when Caleb returned and settled against his side. They curled together, and Andrew slipped into a much-needed deep sleep. Andrew woke the next morning to tickling kisses down his spine. He wiggled away, but Caleb grabbed his hips and held him still. "Cut it out," he mumbled. They'd gone 3 more rounds after Andrew's power nap and Caleb's snack. Of course, Caleb had made Andrew eat as well. He devoured the burger and fries, much to his lover's amusement. Not a healthy thing on the plate, and Andrew hadn't cared at that moment. Caleb kissed his shoulders and blew on his ear. "Wake up, sleepy. We've got to get over to the house. Pop's waiting on us." Andrew rolled over and looped his arm over Caleb's waist. "Then you shouldn't have kept me up all night. I need more sleep." "Come on." Caleb poked his ribs. "Get moving." Andrew grumbled but managed to sit up. "I am going to get you back for this. You know that, right?" "I'll be waiting for it." Impatiently. Andrew grinned and opened his eyes. "I'll bet. Did the other pack get in okay?" "They did. I called Pop a few minutes ago, and he said they were ready." "Ready? They have a plan?" "Sounds like it. He didn't go into it over the phone, so we need to get up." Andrew stood on shaky legs. "Damn, I'm going to walk funny all day. And you better not be smirking." He glared over his shoulder, and Caleb covered his mouth to hide his grin. "Paybacks, just remember. And please tell me I have time for a shower." "You've got time. I'll join you." Andrew stumbled into the shower, his body a sticky, aching mess. Caleb turned the water on while Andrew gathered the soap and shampoo from the samples the hotel provided. He stepped into the shower with Caleb right behind him. After the hot water ran down his back for a minute, he woke up enough to function. Caleb handed him a soapy cloth, and he wiped away the remains of his cum from his stomach and chest. They cleaned up after each round, but done just a cursory job. He turned around to rinse his front, and Caleb began to soap up his back. The hot cloth made a path down his sore muscles and sent shivers along his spine. "God, just having you touch me does this to me." His cock began to fill, and he glared down at it. "Not the right time, buddy." Caleb chuckled and spun him back around. He tilted his head back to wet his hair, and Caleb was ready with the shampoo. He traced his fingers through Andrew's hair, scrubbing gently at his scalp. Andrew wasn't the only one affected. Caleb was ready to go again as well. Andrew let Caleb finish washing his hair and turned to return the favor. Caleb pushed his hands away. "If you touch me now, we'll have to do something about it." "Damn, what you do to me." Andrew grinned and rinsed all the soap and shampoo from his body before stepping out of the shower. He wrapped up in a towel and held one ready for Caleb. Within a few minutes, they got dressed and packed up their belongings. Caleb took Andrew's hand in his as they made their way to the elevator. While they waited for the doors to open, Caleb pulled him in for a hug and kissed his forehead. "I wish I could prepare you for what's going to happen once we get back. But I don't know. Just play it by ear, okay? Try not to say too much, and Pop and I will make sure to look out for you." "Caleb, am I in danger from these guys? They won't hurt me, will they?" "I will never let you be in danger from another wolf. It might be intense, that's all. I'm being overprotective. I know you can take care of yourself." Andrew gave Caleb's waist a squeeze as the doors opened. "Not in a room full of shape-shifting wolves. I'll be careful." The ride to Caleb's father's house didn't take long. The mountains glimmered in the distance, the sun rising over the peaks and sending rays of light through the trees. As they pulled into the driveway, those same beams bounced off the huge windows and reflected their surroundings. Andrew stopped and stared before forcing himself to move and catch up with Caleb. No one was in the entry, so Caleb led the way to the living room. They found Alphonse, Judd, Monty, and the visiting wolves surrounding a large table that had been set up in the center of the room. The television was on, split into a half-dozen screens that showed the property from multiple angles. Andrew had wondered why no one was guarding the door. Now he knew. They'd been watching the entire time. Chapter 8. As plans went, the one Alphonse and his team came up with was simple. Caleb protested but didn't stand a chance. Andrew would go in and get the lay of the land inside the Miller estate. Andrew listened closely as the details were laid out. Danny was in there, maybe hurt, and he wanted to get his brother out of this alive. As much as he wished Caleb or one of the other wolves could be with him, he couldn't imagine getting anywhere close to the Millers with a wolf at his side. They all hoped he would be able to convince them that the DiMartinos weren't wolves at all. With Caleb still alive and kicking after having Silver inside his system, he might be able to pull off the charade. But none of them knew what evidence the Millers had, or what had brought about their attempt on Caleb's life in the first place. Andrew drove to the Millers after having called Danny's phone to confirm that he had the information on the layout of the house. The gate to the driveway opened when he approached, and one of the goons who'd beaten Andrew waited on the other side. He searched Andrew's vehicle but found nothing. He climbed into the passenger side and directed Andrew to drive. Andrew complied and parked in front of the massive brick house. The oldest Miller son, Andrew thought his name was Graham, met them at the door. He looked shocked for a moment, his eyes widening before he schooled his expression. "Good to see you, Graham." Andrew couldn't keep the sarcasm out of his voice, but Graham didn't acknowledge it. At least he'd gotten the name right. Andrew had never been the best at remembering names. Graham took them to an office at the back of the house, where Wesley Miller sat behind a massive desk waiting for them. Danny sat slumped in a chair, bruises covering his face. Andrew rushed to his brother's side. Danny opened his eyes when Andrew touched his cheek.